Councillors, we're good to go. Focus. On behalf of Council, I recognise the traditional custodians of the land and pay tribute to elders past, present and emerging. As councillors of Ku-ring-gai Council, we should always be aware that the decisions that we make affect the daily lives of those that we represent. Let us all make these decisions with knowledge, goodwill and respecting the views of others. Before we start tonight's meeting, I would like to outline a few points regarding this evening's proceedings. Tonight's meeting will be live streamed on the Council website at www.kmc.nsw.gov.au/livestream. Only councillors and council staff will be shown on camera. The webcast of the meeting is available on Council's website. The webcast will commence once the Mayor is seated and will cease if Council goes into confidential, where the public and the press are excluded, pursuant to Section 10A of the Local Government Act. Council meetings remain open to the public as observers, but in line with the Code of Meeting Practice, speakers will now address the Council at the monthly public forum and not at Council meetings. For more information about addressing Council, please visit our website at www.krg.nsw.gov.au. All present tonight must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, publicly alleging breaches of the Council's Code of Conduct, or making other potentially defamatory statements. Councillors and Council staff must declare and manage any conflicts of interest they may have in relation to any items of business that is subject of the meeting agenda this evening. We move to apologies. All councillors are here tonight. General Manager, staff apologies.
Mr Mayor and Councillors, Director Watson is on leave and Mr Fabro is Acting Director this evening.
Declarations of interest. Councillors, any declarations? General Manager?
None from the staff, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Documents circulated to councillors.
Just the late councillors' information for councillors. There's just one item there in relation to GB13, Ku-ring-gai Draft Urban Forest Strategy, memorandums from the Acting Director Strategy and Environment, dated 20 May 2022.
Confirmation of reports to be considered in closed meeting.
No reports per se, Mr Mayor, but attachments for two items. GB7, which is RFT 3 2022, Fox Valley Neighbourhood Centre Upgrade, attachments 1 and 2, and GB8, RFT 16 2021, Orange Green Play Space Upgrade, attachments 1 and 2.
Councillors, confirmation of minutes. I seek somebody to move the minutes. Councillor Wheatley, seconded. Councillor Smith. Yes. We also need to have a quick vote of keep those items in confidential. All those in favour? Thank you. And we're moving the confirmation of minutes. We had moved by Councillor Wheatley, seconded Councillor Smith. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Rightio, into the GBs. We move to the Mayoral Minutes, and there are two. First one is Valet Stewart John Doyle. It is my sad duty to inform you of the passing of Stewart John Doyle, aged 97, husband of Joan, father of Mandy, and grandfather to her children. We are remembering Stewart Doyle's life due to his extraordinary connection with Council. As a long-time staff member, as Council's War Memorials custodian, and as the keeper of history of Ku-ring-gai Council. Stewart commenced working with the Ku-ring-gai Council in 1947, when he was just 22 years old. He was interviewed for the position as a junior clerk by the then town clerk, Arthur Havelock Hurst, and the mayor at the time, Alderman Joe Brown. It has been reported that Stewart, along with his father's military history and background, favourably impressed the two men on the interviewing panel. Stuart had served in the Second World War and was injured in Belgium, while his father, Alan Doyle, was wing commander in the RAAF, which was stationed in Bradfield. Stuart's career at council soon progressed as he became a public relations officer, then council's protocol officer for a number of years prior to his retirement in 1984. Council's record show that Stuart was subsequently appointed as council's War Memorials custodian in 1991. Stuart was fondly remembered by his colleagues as always having an entertaining story to tell about the history of council. He took great delight in relating his stories of the early days of Ku-ring-gai when, according to Stuart, there was a dedicated role in council for an officer who impounded stray cattle. Stuart also retold the story of being present at a council meeting when aldermen who were unable to settle their differences through debate resorted to fisticuffs in the council chamber. Stuart continued his affiliation with council for many years following his retirement. He played an active role in facilitating council's Anzac Day and Remembrance Day ceremonies, which were always meticulously planned and delivered with precision. Stuart's expertise for recalling history, as well as his aptitude for storytelling, was very much valued throughout the planning and the celebrations of the centenary of Ku-ring-gai Council in 2006. Council was able to tap into Stuart's significant wealth of knowledge about council since 1947, which he took great pride in sharing with staff along with the community. Stuart Doyle continued to take a very keen interest in the history of Ku-ring-gai following his retirement in 1984. In 2012, he presented council with the original Bible that was used at the inaugural swearing-in ceremony after Ku-ring-gai was constituted as a municipality in 1928. According to Stuart, he had salvaged the Bible from a skip bin following an office clean-out in the 1970s, just as it was heading to the tip. The Bible is now in its rightful place in the local history collection in the library. Stuart Doyle will be warmly remembered and respected for his dedication and loyalty to council, along with his impressive historical knowledge and his willingness to share it with council and the community, plus his remarkable aptitude for local government procedure and protocol. I move, A, that the Mayoral Minute be received and noted, that we stand for a minute's silence to honour Stuart Doyle, and the Mayor write to Stuart Doyle's family and encloses a copy of the Mayoral Minute. Before we stand for a minute's silence, do any councillors wish to speak about Stuart Doyle? Councillor Lennon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had the great pleasure of knowing Stuart Doyle through the 1980s. My recollection actually is that he was protocol officer in the late 1980s. He might have continued in a voluntary capacity. He had an immense passion and dedication to this municipality and the people in it. He was a former officer in the military, as we saw. He had the gravitas of a former officer, but he also had a certain laconism to his humour, which wasn't always obvious. There was an event at which we sat next to each other, and for whatever reason we ended writing little messages to each other, joking about the events before us. And it was something that a little bit incongruous with a man of such military authority as Stuart had. But look, it was a great pleasure to know him. He valued his heritage, he valued the military record, he valued the servicemen, all servicemen and women, and thus the memorials in this municipality, and he valued this municipality. It was a great pleasure and an honour to know him. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and I'll just echo those words. I had the pleasure of hosting a former mayor here, Simon's father, former Mayor Richard Lennon, and Simon's father spoke very highly of Stuart, and it was really good to hear those words and the stories that he told about Stuart. I also received various emails from other council staffs saying that they thought very highly of Stuart. So It is unusual that we do these sort of valays, but I think we really have to recognise the extraordinary amount of time, effort and love that Stuart put into this council and to this municipality. And I think it's very important that we recognise staff that do extraordinary things above and beyond the normal. So if there are any other speakers, if not, then we will stand for a minute's silence. I've already put the motion. I was too quick off the mark. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Let's do it. Before we move on to Mayoral Minute 2, I'd also like to acknowledge two special people there in the front row. Thank you, councillors. We move to Mayoral Minute 2, which is improving the operation of advisory and reference committees. I don't think I need to read this out. I'm pretty sure that all you good councillors can read this on the screen if you haven't read it already in your business papers. There will be slight changing to the recommendation. It is as printed, where council to amend the relevant sections of the council advisory/reference committees guideline to provide for non-member councillors to attend advisory/reference committees as observers only, and we are adding a sunset clause to this towards the end of the year, and I'm just waiting on the words to come up. Fairly straightforward, councillors. So by moving it, the review to the end of the year, this allows us to see the best way forward for our committees. We have a number of committees already. We also have a number of committees coming on board. We have, in theory, the Bicycle Committee, potentially a Cultural Committee, potentially a Sport and Rec Committee, as well as a couple of other ones that councillors are working on. So we will need to review how best to allow observers to participate in a manner that is productive. Obviously, we don't want to have our committee meetings be derailed, but we also want them to be productive, remembering that the vast majority of our committees have volunteers. We want those committees to run efficiently. We know that our Audit and Risk Committee is always 2 hours, regardless of the quantity of items on it. So we do not want to get to the situation where observers can make those committees run excessively over time. Ideally, if you are an observer, forward your questions to the chair prior or post. If there are issues within the committee meeting that need to be clarified, this will allow the opportunity at a later stage to put that in. So I would hope that you will all support this Mayoral Minute and the intent that it's put forward to. And I will open the floor to any speakers. Councillor Taylor.
So I feel like a review process for these meetings is a good idea. I feel like it would be more beneficial leaving the guidelines as they are now and reviewing in 3 months or 4 months instead of just cancelling our recently improved that we all unanimously voted on the guidelines and reviewing in months to come rather than just changing what we've unanimously agreed on. We've only attended one meeting each, or perhaps two. I think there's been 2 risk and audit funds. Yes, this seems just like it's working backwards. We've changed it, we've amended it, and then we're cancelling it, and then we're reviewing the old system rather than reviewing our new improved system that we currently have. I would. I feel that these reference committees are a great opportunity, an extremely important opportunity for experts, council staff, and the community to all work together, to collaborate, to improve how we run our council. And I feel that it's very often that not all the community can attend these things. And so the only way that the community has of representing themselves in these advisory reference committees is through the councillors. So I think it's extremely important. And in fact, an impediment on democracy if the right of councillors to ask and contribute intelligently is removed. Secondly, I mean, you all are probably quite clear of my background. I'm a musician and an environmental manager. I don't have a lot of opportunity to be present in meetings. I'm new to my councillor role here, and before accepting or being elected to this position, it was very rare that I was in a meeting environment. And so these council advisory reference committees are extremely important for me personally, so I'm able to practice, learn, experience how to behave in these meetings effectively and efficiently. So I think it would be a huge disappointment, of detriment to our democratic process if this recommendation is carried. Thank you.
Councillor Kay.
Okay, so through you, Mr. Mayor, I've got a couple of questions first, just to seek some clarity on improving this committee. In your mayoral minute, you've made a note here, and you've also stated undermining our committees. Now, I was the person back in January who felt that it was important that councillors were able to speak rather than just be observers, and that was unfortunately from a personal experience that I had the previous term, where the chair did not even allow me on the very first inaugural meeting of a committee to introduce myself. I then again proceeded in a further meeting where I couldn't clarify conversation or discussion that was going, to me, in my opinion, on an incorrect path. I would assume that all councillors here would be respectful in their question and their manners. So I wanted to have a bit more of an understanding, and probably you, Mr. Mayor, could elaborate on, I believe the undermining occurred, or the derailing occurred, in a couple of committees. being a little bit more specific, the Heritage Committee. Unfortunately, I was unable to be there at that time. So when we're talking about derailment or something going wrong, are you able to elaborate a little bit and give me some sort of indication of what occurred in that meeting in order for me to make a further decision?
Perhaps the chair of that Heritage Committee would like to comment. You'd rather not? That's quite all right, not a problem. Certainly with this situation, and it comes down to probably inexperience at times, and don't let me put words in councillors' mouths, this is only my observation. When nobody was prepared for observers to talk, everybody in that meeting, staff, everybody bar one person, was of the assumption that observers were not permitted to talk. So when the discussions happened about certain heritage items and their merits, it did tend to derail and extremely fluster said staff. They were put in a position of really what's going on. As an example, I could see potentially down the track, not necessarily with this council or mix of councils, but if a council so desired, they could derail a committee meeting by having free rein to talk with no restrictions whatsoever. So I've taken that example and looked at it potentially the worst case scenario. In your instance, Councillor Kay, I think that was poor form by whoever was chairing it. I don't understand why they would not allow observers to be introduced, and they actually should have introduced the observers and acknowledged them. So I feel that was extremely not the best way of running things. So that's why I'm saying where I could see a meeting potentially being derailed, and in the future to a greater extent. It could be used maliciously by opening that door with no restraint. I hope that helps give you greater clarity.
It does give me some, but I do have a further question. A couple of questions in relation to, I believe, and I stand to be corrected, that the particular people that were asking the questions were new councillors, like newly elected councillors. And I believe Councillor Greg Taylor was one of those particular councillors who has just elaborated to us that he hasn't had a lot of experience in that field. I would think moving forward it would be part of teamwork or leadership to maybe reach out to those particular new councillors and reflect on what went wrong rather than cancelling the opportunity to speak. I'm not necessarily asking. I can ask.
Is that a question or is that commentary?
Okay, that is a bit of commentary, but I do have a question, and this may be for the chair or yourself or anyone else that attended that meeting, whether it was anything was asked in disrespect, was anyone out of line, was there intimidation or anything where I feel that I could make a strong decision here. I am someone that believes people should have a voice, and I believe councillors are here to represent our community. I'm not saying that they ramble on for 10 minutes.
Councillor Kay, commentary, so you're either speaking to it or for it or asking a question.
All right, so I am asking those questions. Was there any disrespect shown at that particular meeting? So to maybe Councillor Greg Taylor or yourself or Councillor Wheatley, just so I can have an understanding of what actually happened.
I'm going to probably say this is quite a difficult question to be answered, given that it's a personal opinion from an individual's perspective. So you may not necessarily get an answer that's consistent from both parties. I'll leave it at that.
So what I'm basically saying, if someone has felt that they were intimidated or disrespected or a councillor spoke out of line, I would like to know if that was the case so I can go forward and make a decision that I believe I have all the information. If no one wants to answer the question, that's entirely up to them.
Councillor Taylor, yep, you're good.
I likewise would like to know if anybody felt like anybody was being disrespectful, anybody was derailing, because it's all sort of new to me. I presume that I was to cause part of this. Like I mentioned before, it was my first meeting, and there was no reprimanding, there was no learning, there was nothing. It was just, next thing we know, everybody has to, nobody's allowed to comment anymore.
Councillor Wheatley, as the
I
other,
think,
no, as
okay.
as you're the second part of the
Yep.
those being.
I actually refute that because I had a detailed conversation with you for 25 minutes 3 days after that, and we went through everything that had happened. So unless you weren't present during that conversation, I'm confused.
Sorry, yes, I do remember that, but then I took what I needed to from that conversation, and so then I would hope that that would have been my lesson, and then I could have behaved differently in coming meetings. I haven't been given that opportunity, and nobody has.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. I did allow that response. Normally, we don't have debate backwards and forwards across the floor. It's normally question, answer. So just handy hint for the home users as we go forward. Councillor Kay, have you...
Councillor Lennon, are you answering?
Yes, I was at the
Okay,
meeting.
Thank you.
In my observation, it was completely innocent.
Okay.
Councillor Greg Taylor acted very honourably, with all the best of intentions. It was simply the inexperience of a new councillor. And in my observation, I think we're indebted to Councillor Whitley for the counselling afterwards, for that education. I think that was very good, very useful and very constructive. Thank you. And I believe that Councillor Greg Taylor is 100% contrite and has learned from the experience, in my observation.
Thank you, Councillor Lennon.
I've just got one more quick question,
I'm not-
and this is directly to Councillor Greg Taylor. I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you did apologise at the end of the meeting, I'm not sure if it on that day, to Councillor Wheatley. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Mr Mayor, if I may just ask a question through you to the relevant director that you would like to answer this. But is this mayoral minute that you've put up not just a standard practice for a committee meeting, the standard charter that you've proposed? What we were using before was something out of the ordinary. So your mayoral minute is just a standard committee, what is recommended by state government or local government practices?
General Manager.
Mr Mayor and councillors, that's correct. So the standard practice is that council elects delegates to the committee, or it can choose to have what's called a committee of the whole. So in our case, we elect 1 or 2 representatives to these committees. Council could choose to have a committee of the whole, which means it's like a council meeting where all 10 councillors contribute to the committee, but that hasn't been the practice in this council. They've actually elected delegates on behalf of the elected council to participate at committee meetings. And that's why we have elections for committee positions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Spencer.
I have a couple of questions, please.
Indeed, fire away.
I understand that there were a few comments about the behaviour of Councillor Greg Taylor. But then also, if I understand correctly, he was an observer at the meeting, and he was derailing a meeting that Councillor Whitley was chairing.
Correct, he was an observer, yes, and I think it did go off track.
Right. So shouldn't that reflect on the ability of the chair instead of the observer who's asking questions?
That's an interesting question. Does it reflect on the chair? We also have
Let's
a...
say, I
Yep.
can give you an example. Let's say
Yep.
if I wouldn't stop talking today, and you as a chair and allow that, and then you come back 3 days later to tell me I shouldn't have done that, then I'm going to ask you, why didn't you stop me that night? You were the chair.
This is true, and it also comes down to possibly being inexperienced chair,
Inexperienced chair. Right.
as we all have been at some stage.
So shouldn't the person in the first place shouldn't put her hand up to be chair if she's inexperienced? And secondly, if she's inexperienced, she should be the one that's apologizing to the people that were there for allowing that to happen.
Is
The
that-
chair, the
yes,
chair.
the chair.
Mhm.
Is the question directed to anybody in particular?
To you, what do you think? Because here,
Yep.
apparently, this is a question to you. Apparently, you are, or this council, a few councillors, have been speaking against Councillor Greg Taylor for derailing the meeting. So my question to you is, shouldn't that reflect on the skills and the ability of the chair? So likewise, if I were to keep asking questions here and non-stop, I will not sit down, I'll carry on asking till 9:30. Someone is looking after my son tonight, so I'm all right. What are you going to do about it? So if you didn't stop me, then it reflects on you, and mind you, this is live streamed.
Following your questions, yes, it does sort of reflect on the person chairing it. With time, we become better chairs.
Right. So it is the chair who is inexperienced, allowing that meeting to be derailed. Shouldn't that inexperienced chair apologize
That
for
would,
allowing that meeting to be derailed, wasting everybody's time?
that would be up to the individual chair to decide whether they wish to apologise or not.
Right. So, final question.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think those councillors that were reprimanding Councillor Greg Taylor for his inexperience and so on, it's not his fault. It's the chair's fault. And I think shouldn't they withdraw? Question, shouldn't they withdraw the statements they made against Councillor Taylor? Because it's not his fault. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer. Councillor Nye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to speak against this motion, but I'd first like to say that I am quite encouraged to see that this council term we have a number of councillors who are attending various committees as observers. We didn't have this level of engagement to our committees last council term, so I'm very excited to see that we have councillors here who are passionate to learn, passionate to understand the situation, passionate to represent their people. And I do believe that this council term, our councillors are on the whole better in calibre than the previous council. Now, my second statement is there is a mixture of practices across local government. So, for example, I know in many councils there is this rule that observers do not speak. That actually is a rule that I personally prefer as well. And so when I first saw this Mayoral Minute, I was supportive of it. Having said that, the practice does vary. So, for example, in State Cover Mutual, which is the workers' health and safety insurer for many of the local councils here in New South Wales, I know that observers do speak, and it's a fantastic opportunity for the observers to get involved, get across all the detail, etc. My personal preference here at Ku-ring-gai, however, is, as the Mayor has said, if you do have a question, ask beforehand. Ask the council staff, ask the chair, ask someone, have it addressed beforehand where possible, or ask afterwards if possible. I do understand there are some certain situations where there's a misunderstanding and it's important for an observer to jump in, and that could be encouraged as well. My personal view on all of this, and after hearing the debate that we've had, is that I would prefer not to support this Mayoral Minute at this point in time. Let's see if our councillors can adjust and be more collaborative and ask questions beforehand, etc. If we find that in the next 3 months that things have improved, then it'll turn out that there was no need to change these guidelines and then change it again in December. I might prefer not to have to change things unnecessarily. So let's see if councillors can improve. And if councillors haven't improved in the next 3 months, then perhaps if this mayoral minute were to come up again, I would support it. But for the interim, I'm voting against this. Thank you.
I'll just interject. Councillor Nye, you said you were in favour of having no observers to start with, so if you're in favour of that, I would suggest you move an amendment.
Just to clarify, what I meant was I'm in favour of observers not speaking. That's a preference, but I'm not going to change a guideline just because of that. But I do believe that observers should be able to attend.
Okay. Councillor Smith.
Mr. Mayor, can I just clarify something I think might be important? Are observers able to attend these meetings?
Yes.
Thank you. I will be speaking for this mayoral minute. I really believe that we're just taking it back to a standard charter, something that's going to hopefully give some structure. I also believe that it's up to councillors to understand what the role is of a councillor and what the roles are when they attend these. So I appreciate the fact that Councillor Taylor has tried to explain the position that he's taken in this, but in actual fact, he shouldn't have. So I think in the way of really just tightening the procedure, really going back to a standard practice, which makes these type of things a lot clearer and a lot easier for people to follow, I think that we should be supporting this mayoral minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, I just wanted to say that perhaps some training at board level, if that is what we are identifying here, rather than saying this person is wrong or that person is wrong, and to be a little bit more proactive in how can we resolve the situation.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Councillor Kay,
I have a
remembering that you did debate, so you just got questions?
Yes, a question
Excellent.
for Councillor Nye, just to clarify what he
Yes.
was trying to explain.
Yes.
So my interpretation, Councillor Nye, is that you don't agree with observers, but observers speaking, but you're willing to give the next 3 months an opportunity for these new councillors and the chair to be able to see moving forward that observers can speak and then review that. Would that be correct?
I don't believe that observers should normally speak, but I want to leave the option open for them.
Okay.
If in the next 3 months there's a lot of funny business going on, then I think they should come in force, but until then I'd rather not do it at this point in time.
Okay, thank you for your clarity. And this is a question for you, Mr. Mayor. I actually agree with Councillor Ward that there should be some training, and if something's been highlighted this particular meeting, training both for the observers and chairs, and not just this specific committee. I think this should be overall for all committees. Is that something we can do moving forward?
I'm sure we can do that. There are various LGNSW courses in regards to chairing, but I'm sure we could also do some in-house training as well too,
Thank you.
and do some live training here. Thank you, Councillor Kay. My screen keeps flashing, so just be patient till it comes up so I can see what's the next one. It's Councillor Lennon.
We're very patient, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
I support this mayoral minute, and I do so because of the review. I expect the review in December to grant observer councillors the right to speak on certain conditions, to set a framework by which it's not a automatic, unwavering right to speak, that on certain terms, giving the chairman of the committee power to manage the meeting as the chairman should have. And just to pick up a point said earlier, I believe that Councillor Whitley chaired the meeting extremely well. I was there. This is not in any way a judgment on chairing the meeting. It was a situation by which the concern was perhaps subjective from people on all sides acting very innocently and acting very well, just perhaps new to the job. and I believe that it would not be repeated in the future. I think as we develop and as the Mayor develops rules through this review, we will find in December that there will be a process by which all Observer councillors can speak on terms, on certain conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And so, in summing up, we're looking to review the process for committees as a whole, as far as observers are concerned. I'm not singling out any councillor in regards to this. It is just an example. It could go pear-shaped a lot worse should a councillor be that mischievous, and hopefully it never happens. Now, we do have committees for a reason. Do we want to have committee of the whole and have all 10 of us attend each committee and have voting rights? That is not an efficient way of doing committees, is it? All we're doing is pausing and going back to the way it was previously. Nothing more, nothing less, and then reviewing the overall process come towards the end of the year. Because we will have extra committees on board and how best to structure them. Some will run longer than others. Some may be a quick 20-minute traffic committee, away we go. Bang, 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 we're done. I would hate to see Councillor Spencer's traffic committee to be derailed unnecessarily. Absolutely, as an observer, and I will be doing that as an observer, and I'll be sitting there saying, zip. However, I could be malicious and talk and talk and talk, given the current situation of Councillor Kay's motion that she put up in January. So that's why this Mayoral Minute has been put up. So we can pause it, go back to the way it was, and then review it come December. Working on it together, collaboratively, how best to deal with observers. So I will now put the vote. All those in favour of my Mayoral Minute? That is Councillor Wheatley, Councillor Ward, Councillor Smith, Councillor Lennon, Councillor Pettit. Those against? Councillor Spencer, Councillor Kay, Councillor Alec Taylor, Councillor Nye, Councillor Greg Taylor. That is 5-5. I therefore use my casting vote to get my Mayoral Minute through. That's carried. Petitions. Councillors, are there any petitions this evening? There are none in the business papers. Are there any to be tabled? I invite any councillors to nominate any item on the agenda that they wish to have a site inspection. There being no site inspection requests this meeting, I now invite councillors to nominate any items on the agenda that they wish to adopt in accordance with the officer's recommendation, allowing for minor changes without debate. Councillor Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as usual, I invite councillors to withdraw if a particular agenda is of interest to them. Otherwise, I shall begin moving them. GB1, officer's recommendation.
Moved Councillor Spencer. Seconded Councillor Greg
No,
Taylor.
sorry, no, I'm not seconding.
Withdraw.
Withdrawing, yes.
Thank you. That looked like a seconder.
GB2, officer's recommendation.
I just wanted to make a minor amendment. I'm not sure if you
Is when you're saying a minor amendment that the recommendation...
Perhaps we could ask how minor.
How
and
minor,
maybe
yes.
we can just,
extremely minor.
is
We
GB1.
do have it, GB1. So we can see if we want to.
That is not minor.
I would say that is definitely not minor.
That's not
No.
minor.
So GB1 is withdrawn.
Withdrawn. GB2. Back to GB2 officers' recommendation.
Moved Councillor Spencer, seconded Councillor Kay. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
GB3 officers' recommendation.
Moved Councillor Spencer, seconded Councillor Ward. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
GB4 officers' recommendation.
Moved Councillor Spencer, seconded Councillor Ward. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
GB5 officers' recommendation.
Moved Councillor Spencer, seconded Councillor Smith. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
GB6 officers' recommendation.
Moved Councillor Spencer, seconded Councillor Smith. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
GB7 officers' recommendation.
Moved Councillor Spencer, seconded Councillor Ward. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
GB8 officers' recommendation.
Moved Councillor Spencer, seconded Councillor Smith. All those in favour? That's unanimous.
GB9 officers' recommendation.
Moved Councillor Spencer, seconded Councillor Smith. All those in favour? It's unanimous.
GB10 officers' recommendation.
Moved Councillor Spencer, seconded Councillor Ward. All those in favour? That's unanimous.
GB11 officers' recommendation.
Moved,
Can I remove that one, please?
Withdraw.
withdrawn.
Yes. Sorry, withdraw. I do have another, what I've been told is a minor amendment.
Oh, we'll just withdraw it then.
Councillor Spencer.
GB12 officers' recommendation.
Moved Councillor Spencer, seconded Councillor Kay. All those in favour? That's unanimous.
GB13 officers' recommendation.
Moved Councillor Spencer, seconded Councillor Kay. All those
Like that one.
withdrawn.
Also,
Sorry, was it GB13?
Withdrawn, GB13.
GB14.
Can I have a minor amendment?
How minor?
It'll be on the screen.
3 pages?
No, not 3, maybe 4. No, it'll be on the screen. Point A, we're just adding some extra words.
3 pages is minor for him.
That's
Oh, that's
definitely,
minor for Councillor
that's
Nye.
not minor.
No, that is
Minor, okay, withdraw
for
then.
Councillor Nye.
Minor. Subject to council officer consultation with affected businesses regarding the location and number of temporary outdoor
Withdrawn.
dining
I
areas.
think we have to
Okay.
withdraw that, yeah. So that was GB14, wasn't it?
Correct.
Thank you. GB15, officers' recommendation.
Moved Councillor Spencer, seconded Councillor Lennon. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
16. I'm sorry. I said, so GB14 was withdrawn. That was
Correct.
GB15. And it's GB16 now.
Withdraw.
Withdrawn?
It's withdrawn.
Sorry, so, all right. So GB13 was withdrawn. There's a greens with that. I think
Sure.
that's about it, really.
That's it. You've done
Thank
very
you.
well, Councillor Spencer. So we go back to GB1. We go back to GB1. It was withdrawn by Councillor Taylor.
So the amendment is there. It's quite simple. I found the business engagement update. I have sent through an amendment. There we go. I found the business engagement update extremely useful, just to hear how our local businesses are doing. I found it particularly interesting the businesses having to withstand COVID and just the impacts that had on them. I just simply wanted to add that if we could have included statistically in the business engagement updates the number of local businesses that went insolvent or go insolvent, the reasons why these insolvencies might have happened, and just figures presenting the longevity of businesses in Ku-ring-gai, whether they haven't made a full year, they're new businesses that haven't lasted a year, whether they're well-established ones. And this is simply just so we can have a better idea of what's happening with our local businesses, and we are more capable of supporting and helping out where we can. Thank you.
Seconder for that, sorry, Councillor Alec Taylor. You have the call. Should you? Not a problem. I'm moving an amendment that we have the officer's recommendation, and I seek a seconder. Seconded, Councillor Smith. With the business engagement update, we do this report once a year. Ideally, if there are additional parameters, we should be looking at those parameters that we feel are appropriate closer to the time of the next time we report it. In regards to the reasons for insolvency, is it going to help us out? Don't know. What benefit will it give to council in its entirety? I don't know. If you're a sole trader and you have an ABN, you decide to become a company, you form a new company, new ABN. We've just created a plus and a minus. And yet that business will still be operating. So the figures can be skewed. That's one of the reasons I'm not necessarily in favour of putting in more statistics, which may or not achieve anything from a council perspective. Figures presenting the longevity of a business in Ku-ring-gai. The majority of businesses will fail within 5 years. That's fact. Simple as. We don't need that reported. We know that is across the board. Those businesses will fail for various reasons, regardless of whether they're in Ku-ring-gai or not. Well, they might have moved out of Ku-ring-gai. They might have started here and failed elsewhere. Would they be recorded as Ku-ring-gai businesses then if they're insolvent and they're in RIDE? No. They're not captured then, are they? That's why, let's keep it simple. This is a receive and note report on historical facts. If we need future facts on businesses, let's work on that together. And I will move to Councillor Spencer. Oh, and I seek a seconder. Oh, geez, I did have
I'll
a second.
reserve my right.
Yep. Councillor Smith reserves his right. Councillor Spencer.
Thank you. I was just going to say I'm in support of the officer's recommendation, and I was going to speak if the amendment was available as well. I was just going to say that those information could be found on ABS. So we don't really need council staff to have their own report and so on. It's already on ABS. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer. Thank you for clarifying that point. Councillor Kay.
Okay, so through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to piggyback off Councillor Spencer's questioning in relation to this. If I could ask the relevant director, is that correct? That this information could be found quite easily? Is it something that council staff would need to obtain, and how long would it take? So we're talking about resources.
I think we've got your question
yeah, okay,
there.
I've got, yeah, okay.
Thank Director Bevan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and councillors, I did talk with Councillor Taylor before tonight. What council doesn't probably know is the fact that for the next lot of reporting next year, we will be using Economy ID, which also incorporates ABS data. Previously, we were using the Australian Business Register, which didn't have all that data in. What I suggested was that once, and I think the councillors are aware of the fact that we're going to have a briefing, once we get the new ABS data, we're going to have a briefing probably August, September, We're going to also ask Economy ID to come and talk to the councils as well about these sort of statistics as well. So perhaps if we were to talk more in depth with the people that analyse it, I don't think it would be an onerous thing for council to report it. There is some information available, but and of course we have to realise the sensitivities with some of this as well, because it may be that it's commercial in confidence and things like that. So what I would suggest is we try and get as much as we can through Economy ID and the ABS, but it may not be exactly what's here, but once we talk with those people, we'll be able to realise what we can and can't do.
Thank you, Director. Councillor
Just
Kay?
in relation, when you talk about Economy ID covering most of this, what would it not cover? Can you be a little bit specific out of these 3 points?
Director?
Because if it's something we're doing moving forward anyway.
Mr Mayor and Councillors, I'm not aware of that yet. When I spoke with Will Adams, our specialist today, he said that we still need to sort of talk with Economy ID and work with them and see what information we need to get from them, but he can certainly put this to them. There will be some that we can get, and like Mr Mayor said, there may not be the full depth that is expected, but we'll certainly let you know what we can get when we know.
Thank you,
Just
Director.
one question. So are you basically saying, Director Bevan, that we will be covering this next time anyway and there is no need for this amendment? Do we need this amendment
Mr Mayor
if
and
moving
Councillors, no,
forward
that's
we're going to do it anyway?
No, that's not what I said. What I'm saying is that we will talk with Economy ID and ask them if we can incorporate this information. So there's nothing wrong with what's being asked for here. All I'm saying is it may not be, as Mr Mayor said, in the depth that is being expected. But I don't know, and Council doesn't know at this stage. We need to talk with them about what they can get for us.
Okay, thank you.
That clarifies things for you, Councillor Kay. Excellent. Councillor Greg Taylor.
I'm just wondering, through you, Mr Mayor, to relevant Director, if this is likely to be beneficial to our businesses and if we have the capacity to help local businesses through working out and finding out what reasons they did go insolvent.
I would possibly piggyback into that question. Is it possible to get all that? Anyway, Director Bevan.
Mr Mayor and Councillors, until we know what we can actually get, it's hard to make that call as to whether we would be able to help businesses or not. And like I said, I don't know that we will get the depth that you need to know. And also, I think probably we would have to look at what our role is as local government. You know, we can certainly facilitate, we can have the business forums and things like that, but there's different ways of helping different people, and I guess it would be a decision for council based on the merits and the circumstances at the time.
Thank you, Director.
So knowing more about what I've asked for here, would after hearing this information, will we have the capacity to customise what we already offer local businesses through workshops? So we might be able to custom those workshops and work on the reasons why some industries might have gone insolvent.
Director, I think we're drifting a little bit off this
Mr.
particular
Mayor.
topic, which was the business engagement update
engagement.
report. I think we're sort of going
Look,
off topic.
Mr Mayor and Councillors, all I would say to that is we do hold regular business forums, and they are, the subject of those forums is dependent on what the circumstances are at the time. So yes, it could help. It would depend on what's relevant at the time. And I'll go back to saying we don't really know that we can get the full breadth and the depth that you need at this stage.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it's half of it has just been answered. My question really was that when a person is already, or a business is already insolvent, we don't get to know that till after quite a number of months or years. How would we then support somebody that is already closed down? How reasonably helpful would that data would be for us? Because by that time the person would have moved on and we would have got new people there. And quite frankly, I don't think we can go to businesses and say, how's your business going? Can we make sure you don't go insolvent? So perhaps somebody could help me.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. And if you would indulge me, with businesses, they can go into administration and be in administration for a number of years before they have a liquidator to be appointed, and then go through the whole process of winding up that company. It can be many, many years. So you're not going to get a snapshot right now. Councillor Spencer.
A couple of questions to you, Mr. Mayor, because there's so many people asking the same similar questions. Are you familiar with the Small Business Commissioner?
Yes.
And are you familiar that both state and federal governments have small business ministers or ministries?
They certainly do, yes.
And are you also aware that all this information that councillors are looking for
Is available
is
via
available on
those
the
entities?
website?
Absolutely.
Smart business and all those things. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
Right. So will you then make this, available to them? Tell them you can go to the website?
If needs be, yes, they can certainly go to the website.
Thank
There
you.
is a plethora of information available through the various government departments about businesses.
Oh, sorry. Another question.
Follow-up question.
Are you aware that there is an annual report on the life cycle of small businesses and the main reasons why they...
They fail within a certain time frame?
That's right.
Yes, there is certainly a...
And you're aware of that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Spencer. Councillor Smith?
Mr Mayor, I'm assuming we're debating the officer's recommendation here.
Yes, which is receive and note. Yes.
Yes, I am in favour of the office recommendation. I don't believe that council needs to really interfere in people into running their businesses. I think it's difficult enough without council starting to get involved and pulling more data and putting more things to them. There are other parties and other groups that they can go to, so I would like to support the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Just in summing up, as a number of councillors have pointed out, Councillor Kay, you're very...
I know, it's quick.
One last question.
Just a quick question to Councillor Greg Taylor. If this seems to be very detailed from our discussion, and we're going outside of the scope of just these 3 points. Would you maybe consider withdrawing your amendment and doing a notice of motion, or am I out of turn?
Given that we're actually debating the amendment, which is the officer's recommendation, so we're not actually discussing the original motion.
I'll-
We're discussing, debating the amendment.
Yeah, it's just that, sorry? Yeah, okay.
That's okay.
It's just that is going to reflect on my decision.
So we are voting,
I'd like to finish a final remarks. Do I get that opportunity?
yes, you can sum up as you are the mover of the original
Thank you.
motion.
So I thought this, my amendment would be quite a simple opportunity, and I did speak to how much trouble it would be to provide those details, and it certainly seemed like it wouldn't be such a burden on our resources. I thought it would be a simple way and for council to show and to help out local businesses. It's not asking too much of staff, and we might only be able to help. We might only find out why one company went insolvent, and we might be able to help and reduce that insolvency happening into the future. And I thought these would be a simple and effective way of finding out that information. I think it's very strange that something so basic has been shown so much wall. Yeah, I will be speaking in support. I'll be supporting my amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. We now vote on the amendment, which is on the screen. All those in favour of the amendment? That is Councillor Spencer, Kay, Taylor, Greg Taylor, Councillor Ward.
Mr Mayor, we may, your amendment?
The officer's recommendation.
Office recommendation, thank you.
Yes, is the officer's recommendation. We're now voting on the amendment, which is the officer's recommendation. Once that's done, that then becomes the motion and we vote again. So all those in favour of the amendment?
Sorry, I'm a little unclear here. So
General Manager, you might just want to assist councillors.
Councillor Alec Taylor is correct. So the motion was moved by Councillor Greg Taylor. The amendment was moved by the Mayor. And the amendment we're voting on now, and that is the original officer's recommendation in the business paper.
sorry, thank you for clarifying.
That's all right. So all those...
I'm sorry, Mr Mayor, does that mean we don't get a chance to vote on Councillor Greg Taylor's amendment?
Councillor Lennon, if you vote on the amendment, which is the officer's recommendation, and that gets up, it becomes the motion. So in effect, you never vote on the original motion. It supersedes it.
Thank you.
That's okay. Are we all clear now? Councillors, all those in favour of the amendment on the screen. Councillors Spencer, Kay, Wheatley, Ward, Smith, Nye, Pettit. The amendment becomes the motion. All those in favour of the motion, which is the officer's recommendation. Councillor Spencer, Kay, Wheatley, Ward, Smith, Nye and Pettit. That is carried. We're on to GB 11. We move to GB 11, which was withdrawn by Councillor Greg Taylor.
So if we can see the amendment, that would be great. This is also a very minor one, well, as I have been told. It's a minor one. So when
A seconder for that. Seconded Councillor Alec Taylor. Councillor Greg Taylor.
So I'll just read through it so we're all clear. I move that the wording on page 5 of the overt electronic surveillance in public places policy under the signage section be changed from council may inform the community via appropriate signage. So this is whenever a CCTV camera is put in place. The policy says that council may inform the community via appropriate signage. I would like that changed to council will inform community via appropriate signage.
Councillor Alec Taylor, a seconder.
Yeah, and yes, I would like to speak to it. This is, I suppose it's quite clear why I might do this. I think it's very important that, sorry, I'll start over. I feel like the biggest reason for putting up CCTV footage, CCTV surveillance cameras, is to deter wrongdoing. And I feel that if we put up a sign that says that there's a surveillance camera there, then that's another step to deterring wrongdoing and will increase public safety. And yes, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Councillor Alec Taylor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So I think this is an important policy for Ku-ring-gai as we modernise and install surveillance cameras in various areas across the LGA. I think we need to balance the benefits of surveillance with protecting the privacy of our community. And I think the amendment, I beg your pardon, the motion with this minor change is appropriate as it emphasises the prevention benefits of surveillance rather than the criminal consequences of surveillance. So I'm certainly in favour of it, and I don't think it's a big deal. And in fact, I think it's appropriate in general to let people know if you're watching them.
Councillor Smith.
Mr Mayor, through you to the relevant director, I just wanted to ask a question in relation to what the staff recommendation was and what they've put forward in the policy. Are we not following state government and local government policy on this?
Anthony.
Yes, Mayor and councillors. In this case, we are. The original revision of this policy was to expand its scope to allow for the use of CCTV where appropriate in public areas to reduce the fear of crime, increase perceptions of safety and help secure a safer environment for people. So, yeah, that's the basis for the revision for this, which includes the location of the cameras and the importance of appropriate signage.
Councillor Smith, I think.
So in actual fact, this motion is really just stating what's actually in our policy.
Yeah, given that this is an overt policy, the title of it, that it's not covert, so the signage is appropriate.
And if I'm not, yeah, so in actual fact, then this motion is almost no reason to actually put it up.
So the difference is that
Thank you, Councillor Spencer. Unfortunately, you don't have the call at the moment. Councillor Lennon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I support this amendment, and I do so for the reasons that were just mentioned from staff. This is an overt surveillance policy. An overt means people know about it. If people don't know about it, it's covert. And this is an overt policy. Thus, it is not enough simply that we may inform the community, but I believe to be overt means that we shall inform the community, and thus I support the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Lennon. Councillor Spencer.
Thank you. So firstly, I can't support this because may or will really makes no difference. I understand the distinction between the two words. Secondly is that the recommendation says that Council adopts the draft overt electronic surveillance in public places policy as exhibited. This recommendation here makes no sense. So the entire recommendation is just to change one word?
Yes.
So shouldn't there be another paragraph somewhere?
Yes. Councillor Spencer, if I may, I would like to move an amendment which is the officer's recommendation.
Oh, thank you. All right. I'll second it.
Seconded, Councillor Spencer. You've just heard from Councillor Spencer there the reasons why he was against it. For me, changing one word is not necessarily the best thing. It's all hinging about whether we have may or will. It seems a bit pedantic, and I would rather leave it as is, where council has the option of putting up signage. And I think, as Councillor Nye might have mentioned previously, sometimes we don't necessarily want to put up a sign to catch illegal dumpers because they will not necessarily be where the camera is if you tell them where the camera is. And you do want to catch them. So if you whack up a sign, they'll just go where they know there isn't a camera. So you've actually defeated the purpose of trying to catch an illegal dumper by alerting them with a mandatory sign. So that's why I am sticking with the original officer's recommendation with the original wording within the policy. Councillor Spencer as seconder to the amendment.
Everything you said, thank you. And for your ability in chairing as well.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer, for such kind words. It seems to be an evening of kindness. Councillor Alec Taylor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to seek clarification from the technical staff whether or not Director Marshall is able to interact with us or perhaps legal counsel, because I feel like the changing of that one word does have legal effect. I think that there is a difference between may inform the public and will inform the public, and I would like, could I please have a technical view from the staff?
Councillor Spencer, point of order.
Point of order, we're not debating the motion now?
No, that's true. We're actually debating the amendment.
Yeah, can I ask that question regardless? I understand that that word is not in this particular motion, the amendment that we're discussing, but I would like to know if, in order to make up my mind about whether or not I would like to support this amendment, whether or not changing that word would have a legal effect.
Mr. Taylor?
Mayor and councillors, in relation to the wording you've just been considering, I think I can safely say that the expression community is not actually defined in this policy, and what might be meant by community could be thought of as being all the residents of Ku-ring-gai, maybe people that live and work in Ku-ring-gai, people passing through Ku-ring-gai. They're all potentially the community. If you've got a provision that says that the community must be informed, if what you're thinking of is signage in the vicinity of a camera, drawing attention to the existence of the camera, a very small percentage of what you might consider to be the community would ever see that sign. There's only going to be people frequenting that particular locality that might see it. So I'd suggest to you that the word may has been inserted there to give an appropriate discretion as to the extent of signage that's appropriate in the circumstances, and to prevent the council from being criticised by someone for claiming to have been filmed incidentally but not being aware of the camera.
I hope that is
Yes.
clarified. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Councillor Greg Taylor.
Sorry, I keep getting to push my button off there.
That's okay.
I have a question for you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering if you've ever got a speeding ticket at all. And because I feel like everybody gets speeding tickets, the revenue of our state is based quite a lot on speeding ticket infringements, and every speeding camera in the
I'm
state
going to
has a
probably
sign.
rule that as somewhat irrelevant to the GB item that we're actually
So
debating.
I was going back to the word choice there. So there is a difference between will. The state government will inform everybody of a speed
Sorry,
camera.
point of order.
Point of order.
Again, we're not debating the motion. We're talking about
I
the
think
amendment.
you're looking for relevance is probably where you're heading.
Because the first one was relevance, and you've identified that. The second one is about he's referring back to the motion. We're not debating that. So relevance, and we're not debating.
Well, in that instance, I didn't get to have a closing statement. So I feel is that correct? I'm supposed to have a closing statement before we move on to.
Once there is debate has finished.
So we're not debating my notice of motion anymore? And
No,
on
we're
to
debating
yours.
the amendment. Correct.
So your amendment is the council's orders. So then I didn't get to
No.
a closing statement. Then is that
Councillor
correct?
Taylor, once debate on the amendment concludes, the final right is for you as the mover of the motion to sum up. So you will be the final speaker on this item.
Okay, thank you.
Then we
Thank
would
you for
vote on the amendment after you've summed up on the motion.
Thank you.
Councillor Nye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question to the relevant director. Point of clarification, illegal dumping and the use of CCTV to capture this, is this covered under the scope of this policy?
Mr. Frabro.
Yeah, I understand that is covered by that.
And then my last question is, by using the word may, it just gives us the optionality of deciding whether or not to put a sign telling people that we may be recording illegal dumping or not, right?
Mr. Fabro.
No, that's correct.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nye. Is there any further debate on the amendment? There being none, Councillor Greg Taylor, if you would sum up.
I've probably already said enough, but yeah, I feel that this is extremely important and is an effect, even if it does say will, it's an effective way of still making sure that the public is safe, and then it diverts more to deterring wrongdoings rather than punishing outcomes. So I'm still in support of the original motion.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. We now vote on the amendment, which is the original officer's recommendation. All those in favour? That is Councillor Spencer, Kay, Wheatley, Ward, Smith, Nye, Pettit. Those against? Councillors Alec Taylor, Greg Taylor, Councillor Lennon. The amendment now becomes the motion, and the motion is the officer's recommendation. All those in favour? Councillors Spencer, Kay, Wheatley, Ward, Smith, Nye, Pettit. Those against? Councillor Alec Taylor, Councillor Greg Taylor, Councillor Lennon. That is carried. GB 13. We now move to GB 13, which was withdrawn by Councillor Greg Taylor.
I'll try and keep this brief. I think I have talked enough already. I'm just talking in support of this going on to public exhibition.
Yep, have we got it up on the screen?
There's no amendment, I'm just talking to it.
You're just talking to it, okay. We need a seconder before you can talk to it. Seconded, Councillor Kay. Councillor Taylor, you have the call.
Yes, so I read through this urban forest strategy quite thoroughly, and there was many aspects of it that were fantastic. I understand that lots of it actually is groundbreaking and hasn't been done in any other councils throughout New South Wales. There was some concerns. I had some concerns with its lack of protecting and preserving the uniqueness of the landscape in Ku-ring-gai. A few things, I mean, we look at our logo there. It's all very tall trees there. They're all, I presume, Sydney blue gums, a locally indigenous plant species, the one that I feel that is very unique to this area. And I felt that this policy didn't reflect the preservation of our uniqueness very much. We have clay ridge lines all through our local government area, which is very unique throughout New South Wales. I don't know of any other instances where deep, fertile soils occur on the top of ridge lines. And so, yeah, so I would just like this policy to reflect, once it's gone through public exhibition, and preserve our uniqueness.
The officer's recommendation. Seconder, Councillor Kay, do you wish to speak?
I reserve my right, thank you.
If there be no other speakers, we'll just put that motion. All those in favour? That is unanimous. GB 14, which was withdrawn by Councillor Nye.
Thank you. I'd like to move a slightly different motion, which can go on screen. So it's the same as the officer's recommendation, but with a few extra words, which say, subject to the completion of council officer consultation with affected businesses regarding the location and number of temporary outdoor dining areas.
Seconder for that, Councillor Alec Taylor. Councillor Nye, fire away.
Thank you. Now, I'm generally supportive of these plans here. I think our council staff have done a fantastic job of applying for this potential grant, of getting us this far, and of drawing up a plan and designs that may which are temporary and which may explore certain options for the Roseville Town Centre. Now, when some of the businesses first received or heard word of these changes, there was a bit of a backlash. To set the context, the Roseville Town Centre is quite tight for parking spaces. The council car park behind the shops is quite often full. Hill Street in front of the shops is quite often full. And sometimes you have to park a considerable distance to visit the shops. Now, some of the shopkeepers have given us feedback that they're concerned that if you put planter boxes and street dining across an entire 60-metre stretch of Hill Street, it will have a detrimental impact on certain businesses. I've spoken to Director Watson on and off about this, and the general summary is we have consulted some of the businesses, but as far as I know, we have not yet consulted with all of the businesses about the potential impact. And if you look at page 303 of your report with the diagram, it says that they're proposing temporary outdoor dining areas with planters and trees, location and number subject to consultation with businesses. So all this amendment, or all this motion says is that, look, we've said on page 303 that we will consult with the businesses on the number and location. I'd like that to have happened before we go ahead and implement it. It may well be that my information is wrong, that we have in fact gone out and consulted with all of the businesses, in which case, if you support this motion, then we're just going to go and implement it anyway. But it may also be that if there are a few gaps that we've missed, then we just need to send a council officer to go out, consult with them once for the first time, collect all the data, come up with a plan, then implement it. I have no interest in having this come back to the councillors here. Let's just get this done. But it's very important for us as council, whenever we approve something, to know that, especially if it has potentially a detrimental impact on business, that they have been consulted, that their expectations are managed, that the positive points of it can also be communicated to them, and that they feel like they've been part of the process. But overall, this is a 6-month temporary installation. We're planning to do a few potential interesting things with it. I think it's definitely worth exploring, and I commend the staff for proposing this and getting this far with the grant. Thank you.
Councillor Alec Taylor.
Reserve my right at this time, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Mr Mayor, through you to
Read Mr Fabro.
Mr Fabro. Councillor and I was just relating to a conversation that he had with Director Watson, so I think it's going to be a little bit hard for you to answer that part of it. But I think it would be important just to ask, is there going to be further consultation in regards to this with the businesses in these locations before making this relevant or not relevant? Thank you.
Mr Fabro.
Yes, through you, Mayor and councillors. Definitely, we really want to make sure we've got a good level of consultation. There's already been some consultation, and on page 307 of the report, it does articulate that further consultation will be carried out throughout the development, design and the streetscape upgrade, as well as planning during the events. Community groups, schools, particularly youth groups, will be invited to participate in events and perhaps make suggestions on what type of events they'd like to see in Hill Street. So we really want to engage with the local shopkeepers and the community to make this really work. It's a good offer we've got, so definitely we want to keep them on board, and the feedback so far has been positive.
Thank you. So whilst I'm supportive of what Councillor and I has put forward, I feel that the staff recommendation is covering this part in any case. So for those reasons alone, I will be speaking against Councillor Nye's amendment. Thank you.
Following on from that, Councillor Smith, if we're doing it under the officer's recommendation, I'm quite happy to move an amendment which is the officer's recommendation. And I second Councillor Smith. You've heard from Mr Fabro all those things that we're doing in consultation with the businesses extensively. It's going to happen. which should please the Roseville councillors, that we're doing all that extensive consultation with the community and businesses, the whole shebang. So let's keep it simple. Stick with the officer's recommendation. Councillor Smith as seconder.
I'll reserve my right.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Nye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to speak against the amendment, which is currently being debated. From my experience in the past, sometimes if we are not very specific with the wording in the recommendation, there may end up being a specific interpretation or carry out an implementation of certain things that were not intended by the council. I'm not saying that that would necessarily happen in this case, but just based on experience and past experiences of which may have been negative, of not being very precise with our wording, we've sometimes had outcomes which we did not quite expect. That's why I prefer to have some extra words here as assurance that the right thing will be done to a certain level. I do believe that council staff do intend to carry out things to that level, but I would like to have extra assurance, and so would the people of Roseville. Thank you.
Question to you, Councillor Nye. You've heard Mr Fabro's extensive list. Do you see any holes in that list that he gave you?
I don't see any holes there, but the challenge here is these are words in the body of a report. These are not words listed in a recommendation itself. And also what's different is that we're in this amendment, there isn't a point saying that we will carry out everything that has been mentioned in the body of the report. So from previous experience, sometimes if it's mentioned in the body of the report and then it's not in the actual motion, it doesn't get carried out to the extent that some residents would like to see.
Councillor Smith.
Mr Mayor, I would actually like to speak in support of this motion.
The amendment?
The amendment.
That's okay.
I think that we've covered everything here tonight. It's quite clear that we've still got a process, and that I've got the confidence in the council staff that they will be consulting with the businesses that will be most affected in this particular case. And I feel that making amendments, with the original motion is only just adding stuff that we're already done, so there's no reason really to cover it. So I think the officer's recommendation covers everything, and we should just move forward with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Kay, you look as though you wish to ask a question or care to comment.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'm just concerned that some of the councillors seem to think that the council staff would not follow through in the content of what they're meant to do. So I trust that Director Watson's team would follow through. So I'm a bit confused as to what the amendment really changes, other than council and I not having faith in the council staff.
Thank you, Councillor Kay. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. On page GB 14, page 307, paragraph 3 actually says that the overall support for the project, with 68% strong support, and with the proposal 73% strongly support. So in my mind, it seems that the council has already gone out and have done their work, and therefore it is supported by the shopkeepers and cafes there. Would I be right in assuming that?
Mr Fabro.
Yes, through you, Mayor and councillors. Definitely there has been preliminary consultation, and we really want to make this work. We want to have this as a great demonstration project for the people of Roseville to revitalise this area, not just for the shopkeepers, but for all the community around, as I mentioned, the schools and the other community groups. So yeah, we'd put a lot of effort in making sure that everyone has an opportunity to have their say.
Thank you.
Councillors, any more debate on this amendment? Therefore, I will put the amendment, which is the officer's recommendation. We're voting on the amendment, whether you wish to proceed with that or not. All those in favour? Councillors Kay, Wheatley, Ward, Smith, Lennon, Pettit. Those against? Councillors Spencer, Alec, Taylor, Councillor Greg Taylor, Councillor Nye. The amendment becomes the motion, and the motion is the officer's recommendation. All those in favour? Councillors Kay, Spencer, Alec. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We move to GB 16, which was withdrawn by Councillor Nye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have something that can be presented on the screen. I know people aren't fond of hearing me speak, but hopefully this will save a lot of time. So we have slightly changed the start of the officer's recommendation by splitting out the 5 properties separately as points A, B, C, D, and E. I'm not going to read them out.
You need a seconder before we proceed.
Should I get a seconder? Yes.
Councillor Kay says seconder. Councillor Nye.
I don't plan to read it out because it's going to take a long time and you don't want to hear my voice, but basically these are the officer's words just rearranged to cover the 5 properties separately, 1 point at a time. There is also 1 point at the end, which I think we should read out, that says that council facilitates a collaborative process in the short term to engage councillors in the identification of material assets and assist them to select assets to sell in order to fill the capital gap. Now, what I propose with this is that we vote on this in seriatim. So we'd vote on point A, we'd vote on point B, we'd vote on point C, vote on point D, vote on point E, vote on points F to K in a block, and then vote on point L. And that way, I know various councillors here have various concerns about some of these points. Let's just have one round of debate, vote on each of these points in seriatim, and get it over and done with. Because if we're going to have amendment after amendment after amendment, we'll be here forever. And I know there are some concerns with some of these, so I'll let other councillors speak to them. Thank you.
We need to take a vote on in seriatim now on this particular motion.
So, sorry.
Let me. So this is just a vote on this motion in seriatim. You can point of order.
No,
Councillor
it's
Smith.
a
You want to say?
procedural matter.
Yep.
So Councillor Nye asked for 2 things. One is to have one debate, but then to vote on in seriatim. Yeah. So it's not good that it's not going to be debated in seriatim.
No, we wouldn't be debating each line item, for want of better words. If that clarifies things for you, Councillor Spencer. It's okay. You were the question asked. Answer. That's right. As seconder to this, Alec Taylor, Councillor.
I wasn't the seconder.
Who seconded? Councillor Kay. That's okay. We still have to vote on whether we wish to do this in seriatim, i.e. line by line. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Now, Councillor Nye, you can talk to your motion.
There's not much more to say. I'd just like the opportunity for councillors now to speak. If you have any support or objections to any of these points, say so now. You've only got one chance unless there's an amendment. And then we'll vote on point A, we'll vote on point B, C, D, and E, so the 5 properties separately. Then we'll vote on points F to K in a block, then we'll vote on point L, And once again, if you are supporting or against any of these, say so now, then we can do this all in one go and go home. Thanks.
General Manager?
Mayor and councillors, just following on from what Councillor Nice said, I think the way that it's set out now and the fact that we've resolved to do it in seriatim, there's no need even for an amendment. This will be the only motion voted on because you're either voting for or against the disposal or the actions for those 5 properties. So it's quite neat as it stands.
And just following on from that, that was my question, whether the wording that Councillor Nye has proposed is 100% correct. And if staff can concur that that is correct, that we haven't sort of got any words skew if on any line item, I'll let staff just read through that before progressing. I think it's important to make sure that we've got it 100% schmick. Too far. Thank you, councillors and the gallery. It was just important to make sure that we had all the wording 100% correct. Councillor Alec Taylor.
Thank
fire
you,
away.
Mr. Mayor. So I just actually wanted to talk to the last point. We have a massive capital shortfall in the order of $100 million. The assets identified in this paper obviously don't amass to a significant dent in that capital shortfall. I know they're not intended to. But it is a huge gap that we have looming in the next few years. We started a fantastic process a couple of months ago of talking about the entire portfolio of assets and choosing which assets we thought were appropriate for sale and which weren't. Since then, it's been 2 months. We have a Zoom call in our diaries for next week, a 1-hour Zoom call, and I think we would like to get serious about this. Let's work together. Let's look at the whole portfolio. Let's help staff to make a decision that is in the interests of the community. Let's provide advice and commitment and support together as a team in order to try and solve this massive problem, this huge capital shortfall over the coming years. Let's get serious about it. So please consider voting in favour of the final recommendation in this motion.
Councillor Lennon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to speak against the sale of the Cooler Avenue property. One of the challenges we have here is that this should never have been a single agenda item. There should have been 5 agenda items, clearly identifying each particular property for consideration of sale, with a very clear recommendation as to what was involved, rather than expecting the residents and councillors, for that matter, to go through hundreds of pages of council papers to discover exactly what properties agenda item GB16 happened to refer to. Now, I've received no correspondence from any residents of East Killara about the sale of the Cooler Avenue land, I believe because very few people are aware of this. There will be some residents who did go through the business papers, who did go down to the papers for GB16, who did go through the paragraphs of text and discover what is involved here. We did go through the paragraphs to discover the officer's recommendation. But I fear that far too many wouldn't have. And as a point of process, we should be having standalone agenda items for each property divestment and consideration. I am not confident that the people of East Killara will be comfortable with the sale of the Cooler Avenue property. They might be, they might not be, but until we give them the opportunity to know what's going on, we can't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lennon. Councillor Alec Taylor, you have questions?
Thank you, Councillor Lennon, for making that point. And my question to you is, do you feel that perhaps that point is valid for all 5 of the assets in this particular motion?
Councillor Lennon?
I don't know, Councillor Alex Taylor. The other properties I have more confidence in my knowledge about. I don't have confidence in my knowledge about the Cooler Avenue property. Other properties have been talked about. We have examined them as council. I don't believe we have sufficiently examined, in fact I'm not sure we've examined at all, this particular council, the property of Cooler Avenue. So the short answer is maybe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lennon. Councillor Smith?
Mr Mayor, through you to Mr Fabro, I believe. Could you just please take us through the process, what we've gone through to bring these particular properties or parts of properties, I should really describe them, of how they've actually come to us here today and what the process is to get it to here, and the length of time that it's taken to actually get them here to ultimately sell. Thank you.
Mr Fabro?
Yes, through you, Mayor and Councillors, I draw your attention to page 416 of the officers of the council report. The background's articulated there, where some of these parcels of land go back to 1994, but in relation to the properties at Cooler Avenue, they date back to May 2015, when council resolved that a portion of that be reclassified operational land, and following the gazettal and reclassification, the general manager be authorised with the subdivision plan for the property. Again, in the council meeting back in 16th of March 2021, an updated report was provided, foreshadowing was someone had been engaged for that, and then also there's been other consultations over the years with the community through different processes. Some of these have gone through a formal public process of a public hearing for reclassification with a public hearing and rezoning reports. So certainly, yeah, they have a long history.
Thank you, Mr Fabro. So basically what you've said, we've gone through a very long process, a lot of consultation, and it's been through through different councils to get to this point that we're looking at disposing of them. I've personally been looking through these properties, and a lot of it, to be quite honest, is leftover bits and pieces. And to be quite honest, we've got to start making some tough decisions in relation to the finances that we've got to find to be able to build what we're trying to build and what we're trying to deliver to the community. And I think what we've got in here tonight is probably some of the easiest decisions that we need to make if we are to move forward. So I would very much encourage the councillors here tonight to move forward and to dispose of these properties. Sorry, I shouldn't be calling them properties. It's bits and pieces of properties and leftovers. So I really believe that we need to move on. It is going to bring about $10 million, thereabouts, in selling these properties, and that will go certainly to some assistance in helping pay for the things that we're needing to fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Ward?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just having a look at a document which was GB8, page 252 on the 2nd of November 2011. the condition and constraints on it says that 56 to 58 Kola Avenue, East Killara, retention of part of the site for inclusion in a community village green to be investigated. The question is, have we investigated and are the community in agreement with us now divesting of that property?
Mr Fabro?
It's my understanding we've been through those processes to get to where we are. The land within Kula Avenue that we're seeking to rezone is environmental living, and it has been reclassified to operational.
Councillor Ward? Councillor Lennon?
Following up Councillor Ward's question, Mr Fabro, can you please give us some information as to the nature of the community consultation regarding Kula Avenue and some details of what the community had to say? Thank you.
Mr Fabro?
Mayor and councillors, at this stage I'd have to take that on notice because I don't have all of the information before me. It was several years ago that process was conducted back in 2015. But yeah, I don't have that information at hand.
Thank you, Mr Fabro. Councillor Kay?
Okay, I'd like to speak against the disposal of 1192 Pacific Highway, Pymble. That is classified as community land, now also known as the Secret Park, which could be debatable of someone calling it the Secret Garden, but as far as I believe it's still a park. This was accidentally rescued last term. So I am still fighting to keep this park. I believe in the past there has been a petition from residents to save this parcel of land. To me, it's all about keeping that green space and keeping that green corridor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kay. I might have a few questions. Mr Fabro, the Secret Garden / Park, what is its geographical name?
Mayor and councillors, I understand it doesn't have a particular name as a park or as a garden or a reserve.
So to find this particular location, you would find it by the street number. Would that be correct?
Yes. There are some images on pages 423 to 424 and 425 of the park and its limited access from the highway, and it doesn't look like it's used at all.
Thank you, Mr Fabro. Possibly through you to you, General Manager. Councillor Alec Taylor mentioned a capital funding amount that we have to find. How long have we been looking to fund this capital gap?
Mr Mayor and councillors, we've always had an infrastructure backlog as far back as I can recall.
Okay, so therefore it's not a recent occurrence, General Manager.
No, Mr Mayor.
To you, General Manager, at each council term, do councillors get presented with this funding shortage and how best to reduce it, potentially via asset sales?
Mr Mayor and councillors are advised each term of funding gaps, both in terms of recurrent, maintenance and capital, and options are presented as to how that can be managed.
Thank you, General Manager. Another question. How many properties in our portfolio would we be looking to divest, Mr Fabro? An approximate number, if we were going to review it. In total.
Yeah, I don't have that number in front of me, but there are different categories of properties. As been alluded to, these properties are ready for divestment. There's other ones that would require a lot more analysis and research, but there would be probably in the order of 15 to 20 properties.
That are in the easy category?
No, overall.
Overall.
Yeah.
So we're not looking to deal with 100 properties to review at our asset workshop, which is coming up on the 30th of May.
No, that's correct. There's only certain sites we'll be looking at for that briefing.
So, Mr. Frabber, would you feel that the 1 hour Zoom workshop will be sufficient to cover those particular properties for potential divestment?
No, I think we'd have to have more time to go through those properties.
Okay, so 1 hour, the first instalment, shall we say, would be the 30th of May,
That's correct.
and therefore we'll be having subsequent ones. So, councillors, I do not see that point L as being necessary. We are starting the process of looking at our asset portfolio. We have done that already at a high level at the councillor workshop. If we do not have a will to sell the rats and mice and the easy ones, there is little chance of us selling the hard sites. Hard sites such as Calga, such as the Ku-ring-gai Town Hall. These are all assets which potentially could be sold. Now, with the various sites, we already know that we would not be selling them. 2 Park Avenue is also on the list. Do we need to look at that in our review? No. We know what happened in 2012 when we had that on the list. For those councillors, that was put forward and there was community uproar. So we don't have to re-review those sites. Calga Street in Roseville, if you recall, Dick Smith was on the bandwagon about having free-range children roaming around. We got severely ambushed by the residents around there when we tried to sell off that block of land. While it is an option to sell it, it would make no sense to even review it because we know the outcome. We know the community uproar. We also know about the Pymble Playgroup site when that was on the list. Again, community uproar. So therefore, we do not need point L. We know the issues with various sites which can and can't be done. We're doing the workshop. But tonight, councillors, you have a decision to make. Whether we start chipping away at that funding gap or not. These are the easy ones. These really are the easy ones. Obviously, there are certain passions about cooler. But again, we will not get 10 out of 10 consensus on each side. We are elected to make decisions for the best interests of Ku-ring-gai. And whether you support an individual item or not, that's your choice. But remember, we're looking at the big picture. What is best for Ku-ring-gai? Councillors, are there any more debate on this particular matter or any further questions? There being none, Councillor Nye, you can sum up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's not much more that I'd like to add. We've had debate. We've had an interesting exploration on the concept of community consultation, what that looks like, what's adequate, what's potentially inadequate. And I'd look back at GB14 and say the same potentially. But let's vote on these in seriatim, points A, B, C, D, and E, F to K in one block, and then point L. Thank you.
All right, councillors, so we are voting on point A. All those in favour?
I beg your pardon, sorry, excuse me, just a point of clarification.
Yes.
Would you mind identifying which particular properties with each recommendation?
Point A. We're all clear with what point A is, which is Ben Street. All good. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Point B, being Moray Street. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Point C, being Eric Street, Wahroonga. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Point D, which is Cooler. Just let you reread that. All those in favour? That is Councillors Spencer, Wheatley, Smith, Pettit. Those against? Councillors Kay, Councillors Alec Taylor, Councillor Greg Taylor, Councillor Ward, Councillor Lennon, Councillor Nye. That has been lost. Councillor Point E, which is 1192 Pacific Highway. All those in favour? That is Councillors Wheatley, Ward, Smith, Lennon, Pettit. Those against? Councillors Spencer, Councillor Kay, Councillor Alec Taylor, Councillor Greg Taylor, Councillor Nye. That being 5-5. I vote in favour to dispose of 119 Pacific Highway. We now do the block from point F down to K. All right, we're voting for that block in its entirety. All those in favour? That is unanimous. We come to point L. All those in favour of point L? Councillor Spencer, Councillor Kay, Councillor Alec Taylor, Councillor Greg Taylor, Councillor Ward, Councillor Nye. Those against? Councillors Wheatley, Smith, Lennon and Pettit. That is carried. Move to NM. Extra reports circulated to the meeting.
There are none, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, General Manager. We now move to the NM, which is NM1, which is the Bicycle Advisory Committee, moved by Councillors Lennon and Ward. Councillor Lennon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There are basically three reasons why I believe Council should adopt this motion. The first relates to cycling. I believe that if we are ever going to develop a sustainable lifestyle, a sustainable society, it's going to involve what is called active transport, cycling and walking. At this time, the New South Wales State Government is promoting active transport. It's making funds available and all sorts of other support, I expect, for cycling and walking. So this is the time to tap into it and to demonstrate that we are looking to explore opportunities for cycling. The second relates to our current committee structure. As the Mayor has alluded, we need to consider the committees we've got. Cycling doesn't fit neatly into what we have now. A lot of cycling is transport, making it not really something for sport or recreation. A lot of it is recreation, not making it really geared towards transport. It is a unique item. So I believe that at this period of time we should have a certain focus on cycling, and it's not necessarily going to be a long-term thing. This might be a committee that is only in place for 3-5 years or so. There's a chance to take advantage of the current focus and perhaps redefine the way that we think about cycling. And the third reason actually gets down to a matter of honour. Before the last council elections, Bike North contacted a lot of candidates for the elections. Of the 10 of us who were elected, 7 of us undertook explicitly to Bike North that we would support the revival of this committee. There was a committee of this nature 10 years ago. 7 of the 10 of us said explicitly that we would. Another one of us implicitly said that we would support it, another gave a broad nature support. So I believe those of us who want to demonstrate that we honour the commitments we make before an election will do so tonight by voting for the committee that we said last November to Bike North we would support reviving. Thank you.
Councillor Ward, as seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to start by saying the Bicycle Advisory Committee is a development committee putting forward strategies and plans. The Bicycle Advisory Committee will recommend educational programs, recommend priorities for works within public domain plans, recommend ways to cycling can assist the council's sustainability and zero net emissions objectives. The council had a plan, bicycle plan, and I think it was around 2012. And we need some more work done there. I'm a cyclist. I like to cycle, but I cannot cycle on the roads because I am very aware of the accidents. I just wanted to share my personal experience. When my mum passed away, one of the things that kept me sane and measured, because I was very, very distraught, was bike riding. I used to get on my bike every day, go off to Bicentennial Park and ride until late in the evening. And that was the only thing that helped me through my mental and physical state of losing my mum at a very, very young age. So I'm passionate about cycling, and I know the government is also. The New South Wales Government's vision is to provide a safe and connected cycleway network across Greater Sydney to enable more people to ride safely their bicycle as part of their everyday travel. Over 1.1 billion trips a year in New South Wales are made on foot or by bike, including around 600 million associated with the public transport journey. More people than ever before are walking and bike riding as a result of the pandemic. The New South Wales Government is investing in active transport for everyone, whether children riding to school, parents pushing prams, or people with disabilities moving about their community freely. New South Wales now has its first Minister for Active Transport. The Get New South Wales Active Grant program for local councils has doubled to 110 million. And each day, Transport for New South Wales works to expand and improve New South Wales cycleway network. Few of man's innovation can be said to have many different beneficial side effects as a humble cycle, and none represent a more cost-effective way to get in shape and stay that way than the bike. If you want to get in shape but don't have an inclination to join the local health club, buy a bike and start riding. Bicycle is the key to a better health, better life. Riding is an active form of transport that keeps one fit, and one can benefit in one's well-being. There are 23 great reasons why we should cycle for physical and mental health. Active forms of transport also help us reduce the number of cars on the road, decreasing traffic congestion and pollution. Every morning, 1 in 5 cars on the road is driving a school student to school. Shifting even a small portion of these trips to active transport would have a significant impact on the peak hour traffic congestion and improves the health and well-being of students and helps to reduce pollution in the environment. I ask all of you to be a champion and reduce the carbon emission, your personal responsibility towards a net zero, if not for us, then for our future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Councillor Spencer.
Thank you. I'd like to move an amendment, please.
Councillor Spencer, if you wouldn't mind reading it, because it's a little bit hard for us facing the opposite direction.
Do I need a seconder first, or?
You can read it then. Well, I'll call
Alright.
for a seconder.
I shall read it then. So in relation to, so this is the proposed amendment to NM1, which is entitled Bicycle Advisory Committee. Now in relation to David Thompson's recent rationale for reviving the Bicycle Advisory Committee, the Bicycle Advisory Committee will support and guide council for planned network improvements identified in the Ku-ring-gai bike plan, public domain plans, future transport 2056, and other opportunities when they arise. Establishing Council's Bicycle Advisory Committee will provide opportunities for the Ku-ring-gai community to attain the many benefits of cycling, and therefore other interest groups should be invited to submit expressions of interest to participate, and they include, but not limited to, the following. For instance, Mike Rowling of Peloton Sports Inc., which may include representatives of Tarahumara Cyclery and Oz Cycling, Helen Sequest, president of Northern Suburbs Triathlon Club, Northern Sydney Cycling Club, Knights of Suburbia, and Belarus, just to name a few. And Belarus, I believe it's the female bicycle club. And therefore, I move that staff report back to Council with recommendations for terms of reference for a bicycle advisory committee.
And a seconder for that is Councillor Kay. Councillor Spencer, if you'd speak to your amendment.
Right. So firstly, the title of this motion is Bicycle Advisory Committee. However, if it was a bicycle advisory committee, then some of the arguments will be pertinent and relevant to the other interest groups as well. For instance, if we talk about exercise and so on, there are bicycle tracks, there are cyclodromes, and so on. And there are professional cyclists where they don't ride on cycleways because cycleways are too slow. Now, cycleways are mainly used by commuters, and we know that. It depends on the geographic location where it's suitable. For instance, in the eastern suburbs, in the city, where there's universities and so on, where people cycle, they don't drive. So therefore, I believe if we want to set up a bicycle advisory committee, we should include as many interest groups as possible. Contrary to that, if we were to set up an advisory committee just for Bike North, then we should call it Bike North Advisory Committee. Now, if we did that, then it opens, the Pandora box where then we have to set up committees for four-wheel drive, committees for, Jeep owners, committee for pit bull terriers, and so on. So every interest group would then ask for a committee. So let's say, if, metaphorically speaking, if we want to set up a committee for dogs, then we should include all dogs, not just pit bull terriers or chihuahuas. And therefore, cycling, whether it's on the road, off-road, track, adult, kids, and so on. I know for a fact that, for instance, Bike North, I may be wrong, I believe they have about 400 members in northern Sydney. Or cyclery, sorry, I just need to unlock this. Mike Rowling, for instance, is very passionate about cycling. He is pretty well known in the community. He represented Australia in the Olympic Games in the cyclodrome. He was also a motorcycle champion. Incidentally, he was a champion in the Olympic Games as well. Tarahumara Cyclery is one of the biggest in Ku-ring-gai. And Oz Cycling, if I'm not mistaken, they have about 20,000 members just in Ku-ring-gai alone. I believe you, Mr. Mayor, you'll be familiar with that because it's in your ward.
Yes, just
That's
down
it.
Down the road.
And of course, that's right, where you wanted to put some posters there. Helen Sequest is the president of Northern Suburbs Triathlon Club. Now, triathlon includes cycling. I'm sorry, did I make you choke? No. Now they ride bikes. They ride bikes up to 100 k's, I was told. Speeds up to 100 k's. And then Northern Sydney Cycling Club. And then you have the Knights Suburbia. And then the Belarus. That's an all-female cycle club. Just to name a few, I included the word just to name a few. So therefore, if we want to set up a proper bicycle advisory committee, then we should include, cover as broadly as possible. I believe setting up a bicycle advisory committee just for Bike North is too narrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer. Councillor Kay.
I'll reserve my right at this point.
Oh.
Thank you.
Councillor Alex Taylor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to speak in favour of this motion, so it actually makes...
Amendment?
Amendment, thank
Thank you.
you.
It's all right.
It makes a lot of sense to me to broaden the scope. I think cycling is fantastic for Ku-ring-gai, but difficult because of our hilly terrain. So anything we can do to make it better, I think is a good thing. I see this really as a debate between do we jump to a committee or do we investigate the scope of the committee first? And I think either is probably okay. I quite like the idea of engaging a broad range of stakeholders. It makes a lot of sense to me. I certainly am in support of both motions actually, but I see this as a good interim step and I think that we should consider voting for it. I suppose I do have a question for the councillors that put up the original motion. Is there any downside to taking this interim step before jumping to a committee in your view?
I'll see which councillor wishes to answer that question.
I'm not sure that there really is an interim step, is there? I mean, this is how we set about establishing committees. We develop their terms of reference. We don't simply establish a committee in isolation and abstract. We get staff to tell us what it is that we're establishing. So I'm not sure that there's really any difference.
Thank you.
Well, he may also speak in support of Councillor Spencer's amendment.
Unless, Councillor Ward, you wish to answer, that's okay. I just thought I'd throw that to you first. Councillor Leonard.
No, I support Councillor Spencer's amendment. This was never a Bike North committee. Bike North was simply the advocacy group that approached me and other candidates last November. But the other organisations are fine. In fact, my youngest daughter, we bought her a bicycle once from Turramurra Cyclery. So they're all fine organisations, and the intention was always to involve all interested parties in this. So I support Councillor Spencer's amendment, and I thank him for bringing it forward to us.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think I better dust off my cycle. I just would like to, I'm very much in support of what's been put forward, but I'd like to just understand, it certainly looks like quite a large committee we're looking at putting forward. If the staff could give a bit of an idea what maybe this would look like, how we would pull this together, and have we any sort of type of funding or anything for this committee?
Director Berman.
Mr Mayor and councillors, I'll have a go at it. Probably based on what I'm working with my staff on now is the Women's Advisory Committee. Basically what we would do is we'd come back to council with the terms of reference, which would include a cross-section of what we've been talking about this evening, different groups to be included. Then we would go to the community with expressions, assuming council is okay with that, we'd then go to the community with expressions of interest, and people would then come back and we would set a criteria by which those people would comply, and if they met that criteria, we would then put a report back to council with recommendations, and also the applications from the people who applied. As for funding, the funding is minimal. It's just basically staff time, and may take a little while to get the expressions of interest out and analyse and go through and make recommendations.
Thank you, Director Bevan, for that. I must say I'm very much in support of what Councillor Spencer's put forward, and yeah, look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am in support of Councillor Spencer. However, I'd just like to point out that it was never our intention to be just exclusively Bike North. It was to be for all. And also in relation to four-wheel drives and the rest of the quotes, one of the major things that I look to cycling is the significant impact of traffic congestion and also the contribution towards our net zero. So, you know, there's carbon emissions that we can be working towards if we go cycling.
Indeed. Councillor Kay.
Okay, I'd like to speak in support of the amendment. I also, referring to Councillor Lennon, it was something that did come up at the last elections in support of a bicycle advisory committee. I personally had that on my policies to establish a advisory committee, so well done for bringing it forward. I know my main concern, and after speaking to Bike North, is about safety and education and how important it is for cyclists to have a voice. And I think this is a fabulous initiative. And thank you, Councillor Spencer, for opening the opportunity to be inclusive of all those groups. That is very beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kay. Everybody seems to be in furious agreement. I'm sure Councillor and I will be exactly the same.
I've got a question for Councillors Spencer, Kay, Lennon and Ward. Would you be open to changing the name of the committee from Bicycle Advisory to Active Transport Advisory? And I say this because at the state level, we've got Minister and Shadow Minister for Active Transport, and active transport includes other forms of active transport such as scooters, skateboards, rollerblades, roller skates, walking, running, etc. So would you be open to increasing the scope, or do you want to leave it as bicycle? I'm flexible either way, but just would like to get your thoughts.
Councillor Spencer.
If I may, look, I'm very supportive of the other activities as well. However, this is a bicycle advisory committee. So, for instance, you have to go into the little pockets of activities that involves a bicycle. So it may be inconsistent with skateboard, roller skates, or I don't know, ski. I don't know.
I think Councillor and I, the answer is no. That's all right. Let's sum up. Councillor Lennon, as the mover of the original motion, to sum up.
I'm not sure what I can add when everybody's in furious agreement for what we're proposing. And again, I thank Councillor Spencer and Councillor Kay for your contribution. It's hard to know what to say, but look, thank you. And I think this is a committee that offers a great deal for the people of this municipality, and I look forward to its success. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lennon. Let's vote on Councillor Spencer's amendment. We're voting on the amendment to become the motion. All those in favour? That is unanimous. The amendment becomes the motion, which is Councillor Spencer's. All those in favour? That is unanimous. That's carried. So we've covered our GBs, we've covered our NMs. Business without notice subject to clause 9.3 of the Code of Meeting Practice. There be none. Questions with notice. There was none in. And inspections. There are no site inspections. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen, at 9:21. Thank you for your attendance, councillors, staff and the gallery.